Hey, this is the Red Eye Live. Was gonna say Mad Dodge Productions. Oops. No, I'm still waiting to find out, guys, when I get my main channel, when it gets streaming back. But whatever. Here we are on St. Patty's Day. I already have a beer open, 40 ounce. You better have one open, dude.
I do.
All right. Picked up my buddy from jail, and I was nice enough to buy him a beer. You almost drank all of them already? What the fuck, man? But no, you were talking about a really interesting story that may or may not be just a hoax. You want to tell the people about that a little bit, 40?
Yeah. To be honest, the more I think about it, and like I'm kind of looking at some of the tweets that were made and everything like that, and I don't buy it, to be honest. But so essentially, this random person on his cell phone got a series of texts and also got sent some kind of video. If you play the video backwards, it's basically a bunch of people talking in the fuselage of a plane, or at least that's what it sounds like. So he started, and he didn't know like who sent this video or anything. It came from like completely unknown numbers, unknown sources, and everything. So he started spreading this around, and eventually on his phone he got a text message saying, "Stop spreading the video." Essentially, but the weird part is that when he received the text, it was in Arabic. And he had to use, Indonesian, and he had to use Google Translate to actually translate it into English. And so there's a bunch of stuff, and these texts, the videos, there's a few Twitter profiles that are supposedly linked with basically coded messages that are in the NATO phonetic alphabet. And all these codes, strangely enough, all these codes are very, very, very easy to decipher. Like, people on the internet are deciphering these codes, which I find very strange, because if NATO were to actually send out a warning message or something, like we were talking about before the stream, they would send it via radio signals. And cell phones are not capable of receiving radio signals. I mean, they are, but you typically have to download some kind of app, have to have some kind of programming some kind of program rather running in the background. So you can't just receive radio signals by default. You have to activate a shit on your phone. I'm not a tech geek, so I don't know anything about that. But I do know that if NATO's going to send someone a message, it's not going to be so easily decrypted. And yes, there are people out there that, they got a fetish for decrypting stuff. There's Cicadia, the underground Cicadia 3311 kind of hacker group that, people try and join all the time. And it includes massive, massive swaths of decoding shit. And you got to travel all around the globe and stuff like that. But,
and 40, one of the things was, though, GPS coordinates, right? And there were coordinates for the last place that the Malaysia Airlines flight was seen on radar. And that's what really struck me as interesting in this whole story. Did you hear anything about that as well?
Yeah, and actually, I'm looking on Reddit right now. Funny enough, if you go on the X board on 4chan, you're not going to find anything. Certain threads on Reddit keep disappearing. That's also the very strange part. And admittedly, it's the only strange part. Personally, threads keep getting taken down, information keeps going missing. There's one occasion actually on X where this person posted the thread got taken down, but luckily someone had archived it on, I think it was Pleb Archives or something. I can't remember the exact site that 4chan uses to archive things. But the actual archive didn't match screenshots posted from the original thread. So there's something fucky going on there. Either the archive was altered, which I don't even think you can do in the first place, or the archive was probably faked posts, removed posts. It's a log of essentially 4chan image threads, so it can't be that hard to edit. But that's the only odd part to me. But and of course there's more. But what do you think about that?
It's really odd
What'd you learn?
that stuff like that is disappearing. I mean, maybe the archive link got corrupted or something like that. Doesn't that tend to happen?
Sometimes there are ways to actually block archives from happening. There was a scandal at the end of last year where CNN and MSNBC, a lot of these major news networks, even Salon, had blocked people from actually archiving their articles. And it was funny because people called them out over it. Salon previously had published articles that were promoting pedophilia, like literally, like I know this is going to sound fucked up, but trying trying to humanize pedophiles. No, that sounds really fucked up, right? But Salon was posting articles about pedophilia and saying, "Oh, well, I'm a pedophile. I'm just a person. I have sexual relations with children," right? And people were having none of it, so they deleted the articles. But luckily, they were archived. So, I suppose what I'm trying to say is that there are ways to block people from archiving. However, once archived, I don't entirely know how easy it is to actually corrupt something that is archived. Something like 4chan, it would be easy to edit it. Even on like, oh my god, like even on Paint or something, you could probably edit threads on Paint, right? Can't be that hard. 4chan is a rather simplistic messaging board.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah,
I can save
I
it.
guess they never found a Malaysian flight. So is this just some pranksters fucking with people, or I mean, do you actually think there's something to this? Like, I mean, there is QAnon, right? Releasing actual information and shit. I mean, there are things happening right now.
Ugh, don't even get me started on QAnon. Well, I mean, the thing is that looking at Reddit, I lost it because this thread is fucking incredibly huge. But someone did link. Oh, that's the other thing. So in one of the text messages, or no, one of the Twitter messages, it had posted a series of numbers. And it turns out that these numbers, if you type them into Google Maps or Google Earth, something like that, it gives you two locations, one in Africa, and the other just so happens to be right over the ocean in Malaysia. And I saw an image of someone who had tracked down the coordinates of the ocean spot by Malaysia. And I don't know if this is real because I don't have Google Earth on my computer. I probably should because the flight simulator is fun. But apparently there is something resembling a plane inside the waters that these coordinates are linked to. So there is something as far as the coordinates go. I haven't even looked on Google Earth myself. I'm literally just going off of Reddit and 4chan because I literally heard about this like 10 minutes ago.
I don't know.
Do you have the coordinates? You just go to Google Maps. It's not quite as in depth as Google Earth, but you can just do that right on the browser tab.
Yeah.
You just type in the coordinates.
Yeah, I can type in the coordinates. The problem is that on Google Earth is the, how should I put it? Google Maps is just that, it's a map. Google Earth is the program that has satellite images. Let me paste the coordinates in really quick.
Well, yeah, when I was looking at that pyramid thing in Antarctica, because I wanted to talk about that, and I never got around to it, actually. That's something we can just do some conspiracy theories today if you want.
Yeah.
But, I typed that in, and I zoomed all the way in, and you can zoom in to that pyramid and stuff. There is some satellite images. It's just you can't really do a 3D model type thing like on Google Earth.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so it does the Google Maps. Oh fuck, I accidentally closed Google Maps. But the Google Maps it does lead you to Malaysia, and it does lead you to Africa. So I mean, there is something to that, I suppose.
I got it. Wait a minute. They
Yeah.
found a way.
Did find
That's
a way.
it. They found a way.
Well, I'm sure
Yeah. Yeah.
Dad, right.
For anyone who's interested, when you type in the Google Maps coordinates, it leads you to fuck, what was the name of that? Nigeria or Benin, Togo, Ghana. Leads you to like it's just off the literally just off the coast of Africa, so it's not complete shit. All right, that fucking led me to fucking Italy for some reason. Yeah, but I mean, this fucking conspiracy it's literally all over the fucking place, to be honest.
Well, I mean, let's take it at face value for a minute. What would happen if you got this random ass fucking voicemail? Wouldn't you be a little creeped out?
I mean, here's the thing, right? If I got something like that, I would totally post it to the internet, and I think at that point I would literally step away from it and let the internet do its job. Because I know this sounds like absolutely retarded, but the internet has the most autistic yet fabulous people, and I would just see where it led me, to be honest. I wouldn't freak out over it. Because I mean, shit like this. We were saying before. Cloverfield did not something crazy, but Cloverfield for an ad campaign did something relatively similar for this. What did they do again? It would like they were sending people text messages about like aliens or something, or
posting creepy videos to channels that only had those videos on it, so to speak. So people would find these weird, creepy videos online, and when they would go to like the YouTube account or whatever, it was like a random unsubscribed account and stuff like that. And when the movie came out, the producer said, yeah, we did this elaborate hoax to essentially advertise this movie, underground, quote unquote.
yeah.
So basically, there's a good chance that this is just a latest version of a viral marketing campaign.
Yeah. I mean, this is rather. I don't want to say complex because it's not complex. To be honest, I think this is rather poorly thought out. But I mean, this does reek of something like that, I have to admit. Yeah. But some of the messages that this guy has received are actually really suspicious. In that when he's getting these messages on his phone, they're in like Russian, they're in the NATO phonetic alphabet, they're in all different kinds of languages, English even. Here's the problem. This person obviously speaks no languages, because in terms of grammar, the languages are shit. Like, let me see if I can find you. Sorry, I'm going through so much fucking information here.
Oh, yeah, no, and the viral marketing thing, do you think that the clown sightings was really the It movie doing that shit? Because I heard a lot of people talking about that.
I actually watched another channel last night. It's American Gadfly actually did an hour and a half, 2-hour stream about the history of phantom clowns, is I guess what it's called.
Really?
And yeah, it was actually pretty neat. But he wrapped it up in a nice little bow and tied it back to John Wayne Gacy.
Really? Could you elaborate if you remember?
Let's see. Basically, the long and short of it is that, back in maybe 2-3 years ago, there was an uptick in clown sightings, and there was a lot of YouTube, Facebook videos about, people like encountering people dressed as clowns and whatnot.
And these were like scary clowns, though. Like they were carrying weapons and stuff.
Correct. Yeah. So what ended up happening is that is apparently not the first time that's happened. Apparently, this kind of thing started back in the 80s. I guess John Wayne Gacy was arrested in '79 for all the messed up stuff he did. For those of you who don't know, John Wayne Gacy is probably one of the top tier serial killers in American history. He would pick up gay prostitutes and, murder them at his house. And then he stuffed their bodies under his floorboard. And then when he ran out of space, he stuffed them in the local river. I guess he was arrested in 1979. And then the direction that this was going in, from what I remember, is that because he was a clown, he was actually an independent business owner who did children's parties, if you can believe that. It gets creepier. He was an independent business owner, and even though it came out somewhere that he was a children's clown, and did birthday parties and whatnot. And so I guess the whole idea of dressing up like a creepy clown or a scary clown kind of started in like 1980 or 1981, I think, is where they took that. I'm a little hazy on it. I was actually flipping between you guys and the other channel, so, props to you.
That's really interesting, actually. Yeah.
Well, the thing about John Wayne Gacy, though, is they actually caught him because of the smell, because he was hiding the bodies in the crawl space and shit. Like, he didn't even really dispose of the bodies, and he was married. Like, how did his wife? Well, must have a dead rat.
Actually,
get that rat out of here.
Better than having a lot.
John Wayne Gacy at the time was not married. He was separated at that juncture, but or his wife was living elsewhere or something like that. But yeah, you are right. They did catch him because of the smell. But what's funny is before that, the police actually raided his house with a warrant in the disappearance of like a 15-year-old kid or something. He did end up killing the kid, but they didn't catch him this time, and this was like further down the line that he actually got arrested. But the American Gadfly was reading the list of personal effects that the police took, and I think one of them was like an 18-inch dildo, and the whole chat just went ballistic. They're like, "Wait, what?" It was like a whole litany of just messed up stuff, like basically the NAMBLA's summer reading list in terms of pederasty readings. And then somebody drops dead at the 18-inch dildo.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy.
A little, yeah.
But I don't know if that's necessarily the reason all these people were walking around and smashing pumpkins dressed up like clowns. It wasn't like the Gacy fan club, you know what I mean?
No.
Oh no, it's a creepy thing to do. I think but you know what though? It's one of those things that you can really only get away with in blue states. If you noticed, a lot of those videos were shot or filmed or whatever the case. They happened in, like coastal cities.
It's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and to be honest, it's like what it kind of reminds me of, right? Specifically when you're talking about the clown sightings of 3 years ago or so. It kind of harkens back to the kind of the 80s and the early 90s of the UK and the crop circle phenomenon that was going on, so and of course crop circles have been happening all over Europe predominantly, but it really hit an uptick in like the 80s and 90s, and specifically in the UK. And so it turns out, this group of guys that are out with wood and these boards, and they're stomping down the crop circles and everything. And once it came out that it wasn't aliens, it was this group of guys, well, all of a sudden more and more people started doing it, and I think that's what the clown thing is, to be honest. I think it's, a couple people saw it, went, haha, that's funny, what a good joke to play, I think I'll dress up as a scary clown and go stalk people or something.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I do remember hearing about the whole crop circle thing, back in the early 90s. And yeah, I guess if I remember correctly, you are right. It did have like a little an upturn in people who were doing it. But I mean, it's like a copycat kind of deal, right? Like where if somebody does it and it just catches the right exceptional individual's attention, You know, they'll go out and do the same thing.
Yeah, kind of like a copycat killers, if you want to. I mean, doesn't exactly
Yeah.
involve exceptional people, but
Well, you know, one could make the argument that they were exceptional people. I mean, if we're still talking about the same, we're still using the same definition. Yeah.
yeah, that's
I
true.
believe a lot of serial killers, on top of that, I want to say most of them are homosexuals. They also were actually really intelligent people, or had at least a high IQ, from what I remember.
Yeah, I knew about the high IQ. I didn't know about about them being homosexual though. That's actually really interesting. Huh. That's
Well,
some
yeah,
crazy
I mean,
shit.
I'm not.
So
I'm
is
not
there a
gonna-
link between homosexuality and mass murder, serial killings at least?
Yeah, it's called AIDS.
I don't. I'm gonna slowly ease my beliefs into this stream, but there actually is a huge overlap between serial killers, the ones that they caught and were convicted, and homosexuality. Like name
Well,
a
you
serial
heard it
killer
here
off the top of
first.
your head.
Wolfshot is a female serial killer. No, I'm kidding. She might be showing up in a little bit. I sent her the link on Twitter. But
Who?
no, there is a link of there is a link between serial killers, few things. A lot of it is a really hard upbringing, a lot of abuse and stuff like that. Even you know, if they start torturing animals or lighting fires, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally get that. There's definitely a component of some kind of mental illness coupled with a terrible upbringing. Like I think Jeffrey Dahmer, on top of being a closet case, his parents would lock him under the stairs or in a closet or something like that for like hours on end when he misbehaved. And I'm pretty sure, on top of beating him physically pretty hard, I think that would probably do some lasting damage.
Well, and I don't know. I just the clown thing. Getting back to that, I remember watching those videos, and like it was really kind of entertaining. People freaking out because some dude is dressed up like a clown, just standing in the road with a balloon staring at you. Like he didn't even have a weapon, but people were like screaming and freaking the fuck out. I thought it was funny. If I, you know, if it wasn't America and didn't know if you were gonna get shot, it might have been fun to go dress up like a clown.
Oh no, you can't do that where I'm from. Well, I mean, you can do it where I'm from, but you can't do it where I live now. And I think you know where MC lives. I'm the town that's about an hour and a half north of him. So
Not even. Like,
yeah, you can't do that out here.
it's just,
Yeah, you'd get shot by MC.
Depending upon geographic area, it might be me or MC. Who knows?
So, sorry, I don't want to. If we can backpedal to the creepy messages and everything.
Oh yeah.
So, I was just kind of reading over some stuff on Reddit while we were talking, and there's mention of aliens. Yeah. So it says, oh fuck, I lost the post again, but it says like the lunar are back with triangle ships. But the thing is that it's broken English. It's obvious poor grammar, like we were saying before. Lunar is home with space triangles are built with haste. Like that's what it says exactly.
Huh.
And it's in the NATO the phonetic alphabet, which is fucking awful, and it's all easily decipherable. But at the very end of the update, people are starting to think that it's actually a Cicadia puzzle.
It just started in January.
Cicadia?
Yeah, their new puzzle launched January 4th.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
fuck.
they launched January 4th every year.
Well, but the thing is that when Cicadia launches their puzzles, you have to solve them by yourself. You can't go to the public for help.
That's why people don't think this is a cicada puzzle, is because it is very public and
And it's very easy.
Exactly. All
Yeah.
the past puzzles were incredibly hard to solve.
Yeah. So yeah.
Fill me in here because I have no idea what Cicadia is, but what is Cicadia?
Oh, my friend. So here's the thing. No one actually knows what Cicadia is. The full name is Cicadia 3311. Okay, that is the official name, but it's just Cicadia for short. Cicadia, I think, is I think Cicadia is like a butterfly, or something like that.
No, it's a. Don't ask me how I know this, but I've gotten man. I was real quick interjection. They come out every 7. There's like a 7-year cicada, and they're a really big fat bug. Like take a if you got some pretty good sized dick beaters, take a look at your thumb. They're like that big.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And
so
they're a massive bug, and what they do is they live underground, and then they come out like every 7 years to breed or something like that.
I see. Yeah, so it's a group called Cicadia, and I suppose it's rather fitting since they live underground and they'll only come out once every so often. But this group will come out at the beginning of the year, and they will release ciphers. They will release a cipher, like on Twitter or Facebook, or the cipher will somehow permeate the web, right? And Cicadia ciphers are extremely complex. It requires, like, the people that have supposedly completed them. Okay, first of all, we don't even necessarily know who has completed them, but people involved are like borderline fucking geniuses, and they spend their entire lives studying cryptography, studying code breaking. And essentially, it involves going on the dark web. It literally involves you traveling all over the world to find specifically like posters and everything like that. I remember there was, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, I was super into conspiracy, like paranormal stuff, right? And I was kind of following that year's, kind of cicada march a little bit. And someone had found the location of like a cicadia drop, I suppose. I don't necessarily know what it was, but it was an image of the cicadia bug spray painted on like a power generator outside of a specific like abandoned building or some shit like that.
Oh yeah, I think I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, so every year they do this massive campaign to recruit people. Here's the thing. You never know who's recruited. You never know who's succeeded. If they find out that you've been getting help from the public, you are not allowed to join Cicadia. It's this whole super secret underground code breaking operation. No one knows what the aims of the group are. Some people think that like it's a quote unquote recruiting tool for Anonymous. Some people think it's a recruiting tool for like the CIA or the FBI to like hire out of the civilian population. But literally no one knows. No one knows what Cicadia is at all.
Sounds to me like it's the Illuminati for autists.
Yeah, well, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, people think it's the Illuminati. Yeah. It's but the thing is that Cicadia, when they release ciphers, they release ciphers and messages that have to be decoded like 3, 4, 5 times over. So they'll release like some random numbers and letters that have to be decoded in this way and this way and this way, and it has to be in this order. And if you don't do it in this order, then it doesn't work. And it deals in all kinds of types of cryptography. I remember there was one year where someone was kind of it was someone on Reddit or something was kind of working through it, and they were asking for help all over the world. And they got hit with just this dead end wall. And the only reason they were able to get past it is because someone who went to college for cryptography, they had realized like, holy shit, like this is it was a special type of cryptography that was specific to France in like the late 1800s. Like it was, it was like fucking retarded, dude. I'm not even kidding you. Like this requires geniuses to do.
Yeah, no, that sounds to me like you'd have to be like 9 layers into that to figure that out.
Yeah, like no kidding, dude. Like it takes many layers of autism, and to be honest, like it's
Onion of
difficult.
autism.
Yeah, it's difficult for the public to solve. Like when you have all these great minds coming to, not to like fluff people up on the internet because people on the internet are fucking stupid, but when you have all these people with access to the internet, infinite amounts of knowledge, and they have a hard time solving it, how a basic person who comes across Cicadia and says, "Oh, I think I'll give it a shot this year," how they're gonna do it? Holy crap! Fucking impossible, man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know too much about it other than just what you've basically just told me, but it sounds to me like it's just one of those things where it could be any of those things you said, really. I mean, I think Anonymous is more of like a 4chan joke. I don't really think it's, any tangible real thing. And
No.
I doubt the CIA would hire from the civilian population by having a bunch of spurgs try and solve a really, really hard math problem. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, I've been wrong before. They did MK Ultra. That was proven to be a real thing. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. CIA has done some pretty shady shit. But yeah, so guy gets a video, guy gets messages, people spurred out into story. That's pretty much all you need to know in terms of this bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no.
I was never. Oh, sorry.
Anonymous is a real thing, though. They've actually hacked quite a few different things. I mean, so I don't know if Anonymous necessarily.
I don't doubt that. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. I was just finishing my sentence. Like I said, I don't think that's exactly how Anonymous does things. They're all a bunch of independent hackers, pretty much, working towards a mutual goal, but they don't even know who other members are. So the Cicada thing wouldn't be connected to Anonymous, I don't think, at all.
Yeah, I don't think so. Oh, someone just recently decoded something. Oh, fuck. Yeah, you see, this is what I'm fucking talking about. Last message decoded using the fucking Enigma code that the Germans used in fucking World War II. It says and this is what the code says, supposedly. I'm not a fucking not a genius, but it says the reason I'm sending the Earth beings this message is because I'm disguising myself from your ancestors. Short for ancestors. Are you sure? I'm not. Am I retarded? It's not even a word. It's literally not even a fucking word, and I just googled it. Okay, so I don't know what an ancestors is.
Aliens.
Yeah, but see, this is what I'm talking about with the broken fucking English and nothing makes sense. Yeah, one of the words is misspelled with 2 E's. This makes fucking no sense.
Yeah, I think it's more of a hoax or a joke or something. It just sounds like it. It just completely smacks of something that 4chan would do. I mean, I don't know. I like I said, I haven't really looked at it. If you want to send a link or something or put it in the chat, I'll go take a little looky-loo. But honestly, I've also never been someone who was big into conspiracies. I think just a lot of bad stuff happens sometimes, and there's just a lot of shitty people in the world that do it. But then again, there are some things that are legitimate, and they do happen under cloak and dagger kind of style. But
oh yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. If you want to read up on it, it's complex, and to be honest, I washed over a lot of information. But on the flip side, it's a lot of information that's probably bullshit. But so anyways, the person who apparently founded the Reddit thread, they also have a Discord going now. So you can go to the Discord if you find the link and go ahead and help them solve this retarded puzzle.
Nah, I'm as shallow as a plate of cereal, so I'm not really into that.
That's a good saying. I like that. Yeah.
Yep. The depth of my knowledge is about as deep as your bathtub, so.
Yeah, this just, to be honest, this reeks of autism. It really does. I don't know how much I fucking believe it. This is about as fucking phony as that QAnon bullshit.
The what?
Oh god. QAnon, it's fucking basically someone who claims to be in the government and they're leaking information. It's not real though. Yeah. That's
I
a whole
doubt that.
Yeah, that's a whole nother crock of bullshit. I was gonna make a video about it, but to be honest, like I had a really hard time making the video because like I got so dispassionate about it. It's just like it's such obvious horse crap in some circumstances. It was kind of hard to take seriously. I tried. I spent like 2 weeks trying to make this fucking video, and I was just like, you know what? I just have to fucking step away from it. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I get like that with my little pet projects sometimes. Like, you just gotta, like, I'm more of like into social commentary. So my number one thing to talk about is, you know, like the feminist, anti-feminist, men's rights activists. Oh my God. I'm actually in the middle of a fucking video about that. But, and, you know, a lot of different social issues because I feel like we're right at like the precipice of undoing the last 30 years of PC culture, and I just kind of want to. I feel like anybody saying anything is still somebody saying something.
Yeah. You have Fuck. Do you want to type or oh, you're on your phone. Never mind.
What?
Or you're in Discord actually. Shoot me a link to your channel afterwards, dude.
Oh yeah, for sure. I just started a new one. I got tired of my old channels. A lot of it was motorcycle videos though, so.
Yeah, yeah, it's okay.
It's all good. No, this one's fresh, new, and it's the hottest shit since Taco Parts. So.
Yeah. Well.
Actually, you know what? Conspiracy theory that I actually do know something about, and maybe you'd want to talk about, is cultural Marxism.
Ah, yes, the cultural Marxisms.
I'm sure it's
not much of a conspiracy theory, though.
What'd you say?
Oh well, I was gonna say. I mean, to be honest, like I don't really consider that a conspiracy theory. I'm kind of committed to that theory, to be honest.
It's not a conspiracy theory; it's a conspiracy fact.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. I mean, I don't think it's as like some of the ways that people paint the whole social Marxism thing. It's as if there's, Stalin's ghost is in the background pulling strings, and Trotsky's rubbing his hands together. And no, I don't necessarily think it's that. I just think it's more of a I think more of like a cultural fad than politicians all colluding in secret behind dark doors and everything like that. But
see, I don't actually think that it's I don't like the conspiracy aspect of it, but what I do understand is the social psychology behind it.
Yeah.
And the large part of the theory hinges upon the idea that a bunch of dudes who escaped Germany decades ago, before any of this started happening, decided to push critical theory into academia. But they hit a roadblock, which is that the people who controlled academia at the time were conservatives, aka not retards. So they hit this roadblock, and so they decided to take it upon themselves and try to disseminate the concept that you should question basically everything that is considered normal and customary. Like gender roles, family units, the makeup of the family unit, I should say, and a lot of different things. And, if you look at it from the point that critical theory tells you to question everything, and you can actually, see the effects of it in society. I mean, that's why we have all these problems with identity politics and all these different minority groups trying to vie for attention, basically. You know what I think it is? I think declaring yourself a tranny these days is it's because being gay isn't edgy enough, and it's because being gay isn't, it doesn't piss off your parents anymore. The same way, starting a metal band in your garage did, like 30 years ago.
No, yeah,
I think
that's yeah.
I mean, I think the fad behind it, like the transgender people, they're not going to act that way by the time they're 30. And if they do, well, then you know what? I can't really fault them too much because they were born fucking retarded. But the simple fact of the issue is that I think it's fuck you, mom and dad culture taken to its logical conclusion.
Yeah. Well, and the funny part is that, the kind of, as you said before, the fuck you, mom and dad culture, and that's a stage that it is a actual scientifically recognized developmental stage in children. Like the need to rebel is inherent in children. And what's funny is that you're literally seeing this taking place on both sides, I think. Not just on the left, but yeah, I don't know if you're alt-right, right? No offense, but I think to a degree this does happen on the right as well.
Well, I'll put it like this: I'm a Baptist Christian conservative. I don't identify with the autistic right. I don't. There's a lot of things that I think they say that they have a lot of merit to. I don't agree with the concept of an ethno state because I think white people are the most self-destructive group of people on the planet. And you can call it what you want, but I think it really is pathological altruism.
Yeah. Well, that's a very interesting point, actually. White people are the most self-destructive group. I mean, to be honest, I think the reason we are the most self-destructive group is because we have the means to self-destruct. I mean, there's still people in Africa, fighting like sorry, not gang wars, warlords, right? There are still warlords using weapons from like bolt action weapons from like World War I that were shipped there fucking years ago on the black market. But the only reason they're not completely devastating their own cultures and their own peoples is because they don't necessarily have access to that high level of technology.
I mean, maybe not. I mean, hold on, I kind of lost track of my point where I was going with that. But you can take a look at Africa and say, well, that's But a lot of people look to Africa and say that's because of colonialism. And the simple fact of the issue is that we have two historical examples of why it's not. If you remember Rhodesia and South Africa, Rhodesia used to be it was like a white colony, sort of, kind of. And currently it's a state that you might be a little bit more familiar with, Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
And Zimbabwe, I don't know if you know this, dude, but I'm actually going to go vacation for like a month there, like next year. Zimbabwe is awesome. They're doing so awesome. They used to be the breadbasket of Africa, and now they're basically the welfare basket.
Yeah. Yeah. You going on like a mission trip or something, or are you just going over there for?
Oh,
for
no. I'm being facetious in the sense that I would absolutely never go there ever.
Oh, okay. I thought I detected sarcasm, but I couldn't tell.
I'm pretty good at it, as all the dumb people online would say. I'm fluent in sarcasm.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't buy the whole colonialism as the reason Africa is self-destructing. I mean, what's funny is that if you look at Africa in the microscopic sense, that is, if you kind of, how can I put this in a better way? Okay, so if you erase the kind of colonial borders that were kind of drawn on a map, if you erase those kind of imaginary lines, what you come up with is essentially a very tribal, it's not necessarily nationalistic, as Americans would view themselves as nationalistic, or I was going to say the Germans, but that's a fucking joke, right? Maybe the French or the British to some extent, right? They're not nationalistic. They're tribalistic, right? So yeah, it's the very same. It's the very same mode of. It's the very same mode of thinking that, like, 11th, 12th century Europeans kind of thought of themselves in. So I mean, they're kind of, I don't want to say they're in the Middle Ages because they have like fucking AK-47s and shit, but I mean, they're kind of in the Middle Ages.
Oh, make no mistake. Just because they have updated technology, because some people who are probably a few 50 Shades of Gay lighter decided to drop them off there for their little proxy wars. Just because they have the technology and infrastructure of modern society does not take away from the fact that they are basically still living in a feudal society. And touching upon your point that if you took away all the imaginary state boundaries, what happened is they actually drew their borders around different tribal groups, territories. So when they said, "Oh, this is all South Africa," basically what they did. I'm sorry. When they said this is all Rhodesia, the problems they had initially were trying to get people to stop murdering each other because they didn't want to live in the same area as Group A and B.
Yeah, kind of like the forgetting the name, the Rwandan genocide, right? The Hutus and the Tutsis. Right, they're forced to live together in some colonial boundary that was drawn 50, 60 years ago. Yeah, and what's funny is that they wouldn't normally be living together if it wasn't for that.
Basically, yeah. I mean, if you go back further in history, though, like people, a lot of the huge talking points, and this is, I haven't seen the Black Panther movie, but I kind of want to, because I actually want to live in the universe where Wakanda actually is a real place, because it sounds awesome. It sounds totally totes McScroats the best place on earth. I'm not being sarcastic. I would totally live there. But you can't, because it's a black ethno state, and I wouldn't make the cut.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I just to like sidetrack a little bit. I did see some clips of Black Panther, and it looks it looks pretty good. But what I thought was fucking hilarious, right, is that like this spaceship flies past like these force fields and everything, and then there's another clip from the ground level of Wakanda, and they like still have dirt roads and like shanty town.
Hey man, just because you sit on top of the world's source of vibranium and you have billions of Wakandan dollary dues, just because. I'm sorry,
dollary dues.
You know what's funny though is if Wakanda is its own nation state and they have a wall around the entirety of it and they don't talk to anyone else, how do they get their money? Even if that stuff is worth $1 trillion a gram, you don't really get any of that money unless you interact with other people via trade. So
Yeah.
it's kind of weird that they paint this portrait of a city state that's basically we was Kang's level rich, and and doesn't explain how it got there.
I sense some protectionist policies.
Yeah,
Maybe
there's
the
some
ones
plot
that
holes.
don't.
There's some plot holes that you could drive a dump truck into.
Yeah, but I mean, I think. Oh, what's up, my Josh?
Oh, I was just gonna say, when was that comic first written? Right, that was well before the Trump era.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. What comment?
The comic, the Black Panther comic.
Oh,
When did it first release? Like the 70s, right?
Oh, the Black Panther comic started in the late 60s, early 70s, I want to say, if I remember right. I don't obviously remember exactly. I'm not really into Black Panther at all. I mean, I don't have any problem with Black Panther. I'm just going to preface this by saying not racist, but no problem with Black Panther as a character. I just I hate this is why I hate identity politics. This is why I hate, the 2015 plus 3 current year attitude. You have to, I mean, and you know what? Even by saying that I'm not racist, I'm being racist, because people think that if you have to preface it, you are secretly a white supremacist.
Oh, well, dude, I own like 3 or 4 Confederate flags, so.
And niggers.
Is that what I heard in the background?
Yeah, my buddy. Yeah,
If
Ah.
somebody,
Eating a BLT just to fucking drop the N-bomb on my stream. Gotta appreciate that.
Fucking,
well, sorry, dude, you're definitely losing this one.
he's okay in my book. We're gonna be best friends.
yeah, you don't pull in the morning Kumite numbers, so I don't know, man. I
Fuck,
don't know.
I can't believe you said that. That was fucking hilarious.
So I forget. I don't remember where we were going with that, but oh yeah, Black Panther comic originally released in like the 70s. Man, that totally derailed the whole thing.
Oh, it's St. Patrick's Day. There's no real format to this, man. We're just bullshitting.
I know.
Captain Coalpile in the chat. I'm not racist, says the cool Confederate general.
Oh yeah. I totally forgot that's my avatar. It was about states' rights, though. It was about states' rights, obviously. I mean, if you've ever picked up a history book, anybody knows that. Although I don't trust the public system, the public school system to teach anybody that. I didn't even learn that, and I went to public school in a state that actually has a lot of funding for it.
Well, so
I'm gonna make my kids read The Real Lincoln by Thomas D. Lorenzo.
No.
So they'll know.
well, no, like don't get me wrong, right? Like honestly, I did think Lincoln was like a cool dude up until I read up about him, and then it turns out like Lincoln was like a huge fucking cunt. But like, so explain this to me, right? The Civil War was about states' rights, but typically you'll hear the talking point, oh, well, yeah, but it was the states' rights to own slaves. So, like, what, from some people that are far more knowledgeable than I about the Civil War, how do you kind of push back against that? I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, and when everything's all said and done, the Civil War was, in fact, about states' rights. That's an indisputable fact. However, people twist those facts into suiting their own narrative. So while, yes, technically they are correct in the sense that it was about the state's right to decide whether or not people could own slaves, it was more about the idea that they didn't want people who weren't part of their local economy deciding what laws are moral, what laws are okay, for the exact same reason that America was founded. We started a whole country. We totally decided to rise up against the only undefeated military force in the world at that time over tax rights.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, people who say that the Civil War was about the states' rights to own slaves. I mean, yeah, technically they're right, but they're missing the point. And I think they're purposely doing that. Like, it's just a simple, sad fact of reality is that they're doing it because they refuse to acknowledge how they're right, but they're not really. They're right for the wrong reason. There we go.
Okay.
Round that off.
What do you think, Mad Dutch?
Well, you've heard me rail about it with MC quite a few times, but I think it boils down to tariffs. That's what I think it boiled down to. When Lincoln, he was pushing the Henry Clay type tariffs, which would have took the current tariff rate at the time and tripled it. And the warm water ports were all in the South, other than one or two.
Yeah, we never knew
So
that. Okay.
all the tariff money was being collected in the South. The South was propping up the North when it came to trade. And then the North also did the tariffs because they would take the raw goods from the South and make shit, and the South was still buying from like Great Britain and stuff like that instead of buying from the North. And the North wanted the revenue, from direct trade within the states as well. And Lincoln maneuvered the South. The South had peacekeepers there. He maneuvered the South into firing first. That way, everybody would rally around the flag. And sure enough, that's what happened.
Yep.
All right. So
sounds pretty good.
So, sorry, I just want to kind of like boil this down to like a layman's understanding, because I don't understand it and I'm a lame man. So UK and the southern states would trade habitually and they would rack up a bunch of money. The North wanted a part of that money, so they instituted a bunch of tariffs so that they could in turn not only gain money from tariffs, but also manufacture the raw goods into processed goods and sell back to the South?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, economically, that was pretty much why they wanted the protectionist tariffs. Because, yeah.
So this was kind of like inherently farmers versus factory workers to some extent, an industrialized North versus a more rural, agricultural kind of southern community.
Essentially, yes. That was the main gripe that the South had with the North at the time, was that they felt a bunch of, what's the word I want to use? It was a bunch of guys with a bunch of silky smooth hands telling, the hardworking man how to how to make money, and it was an imbalance of trade, basically.
Yeah.
Because the South had nothing in the way of raw product manufacturing. I mean, all they did was grow cotton, essentially.
Other than Virginia, you got to remember when Virginia left and joined the Confederacy, that gave the Confederacy the power to create a war machine, which they immediately did, and that's why the North, constantly throughout the entirety of the Civil War, would constantly be within Virginia trying to take Richmond.
Because Virginia was the only state that had the manufacturing power to actually make cannons and everything like that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and they had the shipyards also, which the North immediately captured. And I don't remember if they burnt it down or they just captured and held it.
Oh, they actually burnt it. Fun fact, though, a lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of battles in the Civil War took place via naval battles, which is a fun little historical fact. We actually had the first, I don't want to say it's a submarine, because it wasn't really, but it was like a gunboat that you could submerge.
Oh, you're talking about the
Huh?
ironclads, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was one.
I think he was talking about a actual submarine. I remember reading about that. The
Oh,
South
yeah.
actually made the first submarine. The ironclad was right. What was it? They had captured a Union ship and they just fucking bolted the iron onto it and christened it the CSS Virginia or some shit like that.
Yeah, that sounds
I mean,
about right. Basically, what they did was they were the first people to do this. They actually captured a Union boat, and they were like, "Oh man, these wooden boats are really weak, and they don't do too well when you fire shots across the bow. So, I guess what we'll do is we'll take giant plates of metal and bolt it to the side. Create the first warship."
That's crazy.
Yeah, fun fact. That's where the word ironclad comes from.
Interesting.
Yep, didn't exist in the lexicon until then.
That's some crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm. So, like, when you make an ironclad deal.
No, and what was cool about the blockade was how the South ran the blockade. And they would go balls out and just run the blockade and head directly for the Caribbean, where the British would sell them weapons and food and shit. That must have been pretty hardcore trying to run that blockade. You know what I mean? You're in a little tiny fucking ship trying to go as fast as you can across that line.
Yeah, and they didn't. It wasn't really like how big of a motor you could put in or how big of an engine. It was like how fast could your guys row.
Should just use triremes.
Yeah, or like how much push is in the air that day.
That's crazy. Oh, this
so anyways, Africa.
Oh, fuck yeah. What were we talking about? Oh, Africa's an awful place. Yeah.
Yep, great place. Totally awesome place. But yeah, cultural Marxism, though. Man, how far off the rails did we go with that? way out there.
About
way
6
way
miles.
out.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, you guys spoke about that in generalized terms. I'm not necessarily on the same page. You want to catch me up?
What do you want in your sandwich?
Yeah. What do you want to know?
Well, Mad Dodge, do you want to know about like how cultural Marxism kind of took root like today, or are you talking like Soviet Union still existing type deal?
Well, no, you were equating it to a conspiracy theory. That's where you're losing me. I know what a Marxist is. Yeah, but
Okay. Yeah, I think I can help bridge that gap. So basically, it's sort of kind of a conspiracy theory, sort of kind of actual conspiracy fact, I guess. But the long and short of it is that the founders of the Frankfurt School in Germany, when they fled Germany and when Hitler took power, they came to America seeking asylum, and they created this Frankfurt School. And in that school, they taught critical theory, and their critical theory was based on Marxist theory of communism. And in creating critical theory and teaching it and spreading it and propagating it, they've kind of essentially infiltrated academia to subvert conservative values, in the sense that, like a good example, the goal of cultural Marxism is to atomize society. It's to fracture already small groups into increasingly smaller groups, to the point where everybody's arguing over like these, like 3% of the population. They're arguing to the point where nothing can get done because everybody keeps getting stonewalled by another group. Fun plug for my name there. So they keep it keeps people arguing versus actually accomplishing anything. And when you do that, you create a lot of social problems and social unrest, because nobody can agree on anything to get anything done. Like, I phrase it to people like this. The top 3 things that millennials care about is weed, butt sex, and bathroom privileges. And they want to fix all these problems in the world, like deep-seated racism and starving children and shit, but they can't even figure out what bathroom to use. So how are they going to determine fiscal policy? Things like that.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. And when it comes to the colleges, they really did influx into the teaching roles, and now a lot of them are tenured. So you can't fire these people if you wanted to.
Exactly, and that's the issue that you're up against, because on top of the fact that college doesn't actually teach you anything of value anymore, and I went to a 2-year school, and an associate's degree in computer science is worth exactly what the paper it's printed on is. It's about $1.55, and so they don't teach you anything of real value. And the fact that everybody has a college degree, it doesn't set you apart anymore. It's almost kind of like expected. So what ends up happening is you have people who go to school for like 4 years to basically learn nothing, come out into the job world, and the only thing they're qualified to do is hold protests at Berkeley and set things on fire and fuck shit up and work at McDonald's.
Well, luckily that's now a paid gig, right? I keep seeing all these Craigslist ads for protesters. I mean,
Paid
it's
protest.
it's like a real fucking job now. That's insane.
I mean, if you ask George Soros, it is, but I mean, I don't really know about that either. I mean, people say that George Soros is trying to subvert, America, and it's a conspiracy of billionaires, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, simple fact of the issue is that, the current situation with academia is distressing for a number of reasons. The number one of which is that, you're indoctrinated from like public school on. Quick little backstory, I grew up in, rural upstate New York, and, total blue state, like we elected Hillary Clinton for like some, government position there. And, so I remember looking back on my education, and I see a lot of propaganda, a lot of false information. And I mean, I believed a lot of, liberal leftist ideals and values all the way up until I kind of started to smarten up and realize that it's all bullshit.
I just want to point out the irony that you have Stonewall Jackson as your avatar, but you were born and raised in fucking New York. I'm just
my dad's from Georgia, but it's a tie-in to my channel in that I'm a little bit of a rebel, I guess. I mean, anybody who says anything that's to the right of Ayn Rand at this point is, considered a radical rightist. So it's kind of one of those things where it's not hard to rebel.
Well, yeah. Okay, so like I'm a libertarian. I'm probably a lot more liberal on a lot of stuff than you are, but they kind of throw the libertarians in with the alt-right at this point. Like they don't even know what they're talking about anymore.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you're anywhere to the right of Trotsky, you are, a white supremacist. But the other thing is, I hate the idea of horseshoe theory, that the two far ends of the spectrum are, closer in value than anybody actually wants to admit. Because if you take a look on the left, you have communism, fascism, socialism, authoritarian governments, and then on the far right, depending upon who you ask. So like on the left is communism, and depending upon which retard you're talking to, fascism is on the right. And then we have to find a happy middle ground between extreme authoritarian communism and extreme authoritarian fascism. Like that's where we have to find the middle ground. Like that's straight retarded.
Well, yeah, I've always argued that that's a false dichotomy. The dichotomy is authoritarian on one end, where you have the communists and the fascists, and on the other is total anarchy. What we want to do is we want to be right there next to the Constitution. We want to be right there where the founding fathers put us. I would actually prefer a little bit more towards anarchy to the Articles of Confederation, but I'll be fine with the Constitution. And then we'll argue about the roads later and my private police force. But
see, this is actually kind of interesting for me because I'm almost a fascist, very nearly. I do believe that. Well, let me put it like this: I'm ex-military too. I signed a bill that said I would, defend and protect the Constitution of the United States. And at this point, the United States makes me so depressed, and the state of things makes me so unhappy that I actually would prefer if somebody came in and ran shit at this juncture. And that's a hard thing for me to say, but that's exactly how I feel. Like when Trump's election was on the horizon, and everybody started saying that Russia's behind it. I'm like, you know what? Honestly, if Russia wants to take a stab at running this fucking ship out of the fucking ground that we've ran it into, I'm willing to let them try. Plain and simple.
I'm not a big Putin fan. I would prefer not to have Russia running the show.
Oh, I agree, but I mean, Russia's on the upturn right now. I mean, their Christianity's coming back to them. They're actually one of the most non-secular societies in Eastern Europe, which, fun facts. But, I mean, they're not, Russia is not America's natural enemy. It really isn't. It's the problem is that people paint them like they are. So, like, when people say, like, oh, like, Russia had, an influence on the election, this is bad. And I'm like, no, it's not really that bad. You're still living in a Cold War mindset, which is really sad. Russia could be just as good of an ally to us as basically any other NATO nation is, if not better, because at the least, if nothing else, their people have principles.
Yeah, but they don't necessarily have the same principles as we do, and they are quite authoritarian over there. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you say they're authoritarian, but the simple fact of the issue is that I'm going to say it. I have a few Russian friends, and I mean, honestly, from what they tell me, Russia doesn't sound half bad. Like, yeah, you give up a little bit of personal liberty, but at this point, we're so far down the rabbit hole of freedom that we're arguing about laws that cater to literally 0.3% of the population. Like we don't need to have a national dialogue about transgender issues and rights, because honestly, like it's like what 300,000 people at most. But then again, those numbers probably aren't accurate, because you really can't gauge how somebody feels until they decide to out themselves. But simple fact of the issue is that gay marriage was a fucking thing that we needed to vote on, apparently, for the 5% at highest estimate population of the United States. It's just boils down to it's a very vocal minority.
Well, here's my argument, how it's always been when it came to the marriage issue. Why is it up to the government to issue the marriage license? Why can't that be between you, your wife, or what have you, and a church, and God? Okay. Or so I mean, you don't need a government sanctioned license. And if you stop that, there would have been no gay marriage debate. They could have made their own churches and issued their own licenses.
Well, allow me to answer that for you. The purpose of the government issuing marriage licenses is because marriage is a contract. And in order to legally enter a contract, you have to be at least the age of majority, right? So you have to be 18. The simple fact of the issue is that the government issues a marriage license to say that a marriage is a valid marriage because both people entering the contract are legally allowed to do so. So that's where the marriage, the concept of a marriage license comes in. And I mean, you take a look at Mormons. Mormons believe in, you're a person, you're a full adult at like 13 or 14. They also believe in a lot of other interesting stuff. But when you leave it up to people, most people are fucking dumb. So you really can't count on, I hate saying this because, I think our government's garbage, but you really can't count on your average Joe to make sure that something is being enforced and legal, especially when it comes to marriage, because that is a legally binding contract between two people.
Yeah. If you guys ever know about some crazy fucking Mormon shit, just ask me, because I had the unfortunate opportunity to go to a Mormon church for a little while. But
boy, that sounds fun.
No, but it's only a legally binding contract because the government sticks its big fucking nasty paws in everything.
Well, that's I mean, this. Oh, sorry.
Well, I just want to say really quick. You made the point about the government has to interfere because people are idiots. Well, personally, I would prefer it that way. To me, I view the government. It's a rather pessimistic view, and this has really only come about recently. But it's like, right, the government, much like, let's just look at the EU, for instance. You can't have a toaster at a specific wattage. So if stupid ass Timmy pokes a fucking fork in the toaster, he doesn't get completely dead, right? The government is a gateway, it's a how should I put it? It's a buffer between Darwinism and society, right? If people want to do stupid shit, I just say let them fucking do it. That's Darwinism in effect. If you want to give a 6-year-old a gun and they fucking shoot you in the head, sucks to be you, bro.
Well, see, that's where I draw the line, though. I mean, you should have to be held accountable for things that you do, and unfortunately, the best way to do that is through the social contract, which is government. I am by no means advocating for a bigger government than we already have. But at the end of the day, to answer Red Eye's statement, the idea that the government makes it a big deal because they're in it is not necessarily true. Because before then, marriage contracts, over the last few centuries have always been an exchange of goods and property. And at the end of the day, if something were to happen to that, somebody has to decide what happens to that, and it has to be a fair decision. It can't be, just arbitrary or, whoever's got the, most guns. So, I mean, my opinion is that, I understand why the government does it. I agree with the reason they do it. However, that does not, dragging family court into the issue doesn't necessarily invalidate the government's reason for doing it in the first place.
I see. So personally, would you agree with would you agree more with Locke or with Rousseau in terms of the construct of a social contract?
I believe John Locke is the one that guarantees everybody has their own individual liberties. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So then I'm more of I agree with Locke. I understand Rousseau's point in the sense that, but you also got to look at the context. Take a look at what happened after the French Revolution, in the sense that their society went to shit and they blamed the monarchy. But what did they do after the monarchy was felled? It became a free-for-all of who was willing to snitch on each other the fastest for the Jacobins. So, I mean, that's not the greatest situation to be in either. It was a society built around fear. And I don't think that, you should surrender any personal liberties to any entity for any reason, because at the end of the day, if you just look at it from a logical perspective, in the sense that, we word our Bill of Rights in the sense that they're inalienable. What people don't understand is that the word inalienable literally means you cannot give them away and they cannot be taken from you. You cannot surrender your right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to anybody, and it can't be taken from you. And a lot of people don't understand that. They think that inalienable just means that it's given to you and you can do what you want with it, which is why I disagree with consent-based morality, which is, everybody says that, he said it was okay to do.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah, I have to agree. It's a it's a very, I don't want to say edgy game because that makes it sound stupid, but
Sounds gay.
it fucking sounds so gay, right? But it's a very on the fence game of trying to balance between I don't want to between essentially a kind of Ayn Randian kind of economic and moral chaos and anarchy versus the, as you said before, inalienable rights, where they can't be taken away, they can't be given away. There's, it's just something that you have as a human upon birth, and of course, reaching the proper age due to social contract and government and everything like that, right? You can own a gun, or you can vote, or you can rent a car, or this kind of bullshit. But it's finding a balance that's the hard thing.
Balance is the correct way of stating it, and this is the example that I give to people when I'm trying to drive home my point. The entire purpose of government is to ensure the sovereignty of the state that people live in under that government. Period. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, any other concessions they make to the government to decide things is on them. However, though, that's government's only purpose. The only reason it exists is to ensure that the people living under it can continue to exist peacefully because of your inalienable rights. So like when people say to me, oh, well, it's two consenting adults, it's, it's none of your business, it doesn't affect you. I tell them that nothing happens inside of a vacuum, right? Nothing happens for no reason. And then for the consent aspect of it, there was a few years ago, hang on.
Well, my question to you is this: do you believe that the United States was created by the states? Was the federal government created by the states, creating the union, or do you subscribe to Lincoln's philosophy, where the federal government created the states? He totally flipped it upside down, in my honest opinion. And that can go to either of you. I don't know if he's having a mic issue or something.
Yeah, I think he's pardon me. I think he's having to talk to someone else for a bit.
Sorry, side conversation. I totally missed that. What'd you say?
Okay, so the right of secession was basically my question. So did the states create the union, which is the way I see it, or did the federal government create the states?
Okay, well, I mean, the states technically existed before the concept of the federal government. However, though, you still need a governing body to determine whether or not, to make it. It's like having a co-man. Like, you ever seen the Office? It's like when they make who's the freaking character? It's the dude who dates Pam. I forget. I can't remember his name, but it's when they make him co-manager, right? It's like big picture, little picture stuff. So like the states have the right to, state and stipulate what happens and what's legal within their boundaries. But at the end of the day, they still need to cooperate for the common goal of existing as a United States, right? So what ends up happening is the states exist to serve the federal government, and the federal government exists to serve the nation.
Okay, but do you believe that a state has the right to leave the union?
One more time.
Do you believe that a state has the right to leave the union, to secede?
Personally, no. I don't think the state has the right to leave.
Okay. 40, I don't know if I've ever had you actually answer this question. So what's your theory on the formation of the states and the federal government?
Well, I mean, originally you have your little 13 colonies that were independent of each other. They traded, they had border skirmishes or what have you. Know, this is stuff that tiny states do and often have. But they had to come together for independence due to the fact that they were just being oppressed by the UK. So in my view, it was a bunch of tiny states that were largely independent, and they were drawn on a map by the UK, separate populations, they ran differently, had different laws, not just locally, but in a state sense, they had different state laws, for instance. And so the state came first, right? The egg came first, the state came first, and then they had later formed a union. So I would put the state over the federal government. But the problem is, like, when you start talking about states leaving the union, the problem is that the federal government has expanded so much that, like, let's just take Texas, for instance. Realistically, can Texas leave the union? The answer is no, because there are not the Y-12 plants. There's a plant in Texas that literally assembles nuclear weapons for the federal government. That is a huge asset to lose. They also have the most in terms of gold reserves. They're a huge economy. They're literally one of the biggest economies inside the union. They generate an incredible amount of profit. So for them to leave, take those assets with them, the gold and the nuclear assembly plants and everything like that, that would impact our federal government to such a level that you probably couldn't, you probably could contain or sustain the union rather, but it would be really fucking hard. So it'd be a detriment.
Why is that Texas? Yeah, but 40, not to cut you off, it would be a detriment. Of course, the federal government does not want Texas to leave, but that's not Texas's problem. If they vote to leave, sir, they have every right to leave, especially in the case of Texas, which was an independent nation state before it joined the union. It not only, it wasn't a part of the 13 original colonies, but it was its own entity, and then decided to be annexed by the United States government.
See, this is, I'll elaborate on what I said a couple minutes ago with the states not being allowed to leave. The thing is we're well beyond the point where if a state wanted to leave, that they could, because everybody's so interdependent upon each other. Like Texas, all your largest states, even they all couldn't be self-sufficient. They just can't. And on top of that, they share, like 5 borders with other states, which are part of another nation. So what it comes down to is, now you're dealing with international politics on the same continent.
So they deal with that all the time in Europe, or used to, until, Germany won World War III without firing a shot.
Well, I mean, the other thing to take into account is literally worldwide geopolitics. And for Texas to leave the union, that would have a massive impact, right? It's just one state, right? It's not like we're talking about some pissant state like fucking Wyoming or something like that, right? This is a huge state, generates a metric fuck ton of profit. So for them to leave, not only would that take into account regional politics, right? They would be skirmishing with Mexico, and there's a good chance that even if Texas did just secede one day forcefully, the U.S. would just simply invade and install a puppet government, and we just adopt them back in, right? But all that bullshit aside, what's up?
Hey, real quick, I got to jump out of the stream. So I will catch up with you guys later. It's been totally fun. If I can rejoin and you guys are still streaming, I might jump back in, but I got a slight issue I got to take care of. Okay.
No worries, dude.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, no problem.
If you get the opportunity, post your channel in Discord so I can find you.
You got it. Done deal. I will catch you guys later. Have a good one.
All right. See you, man. Nice talking to you.
How do you say, man? But go ahead, 40. Me and you can carry on with that, and I'll go ahead. This is St. Patrick's Day. We'll see if anybody wants to jump in. I'll throw the link out.
Yeah.
In the chat. Yeah. I'll mute myself again. Go ahead.
Oh, you're good. But I was gonna say, oh fuck, I totally Texas secedes. Oh, right. There is a chance that would be compromising our place on the kind of grand chessboard of geopolitics. It's one of those things that it's really hard to compromise. And again, you have to find a balance. But you have to take into account worldwide geopolitics. I mean, if Texas leaves, and how are other countries going to influence them? What kind of parties are going to creep up? Are there going to be communist parties or fascist parties or nationalistic parties that take hold? Who knows? And you have to account for external influences from maybe Russia, China, or Germany, or the UK or France or whatever's going on. And it sucks, but I don't think we're at a stage like Staxton was saying. We're at a stage where if states wanted to leave, like in like the early to mid 1800s, I would have said go for it if I was alive back then. But at the moment, I think the grand chessboard takes precedent over local politics, and that's only because we're in such a tense kind of tense environment, I suppose you could say.
I don't know about that, man. Because tough titties, I guess would be my response if I was the governor of Texas and they actually had a secessionist convention and decided to leave. Who cares about your geopolitical spot in the world, United States? Tough titties, we're out. I mean, because what it sounds like to me is you're giving me the same argument Lincoln made. And I don't like that.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think I don't think Lincoln was correct, because in that specific time frame of history, you're not operating in an environment in which there are drones, in which you have nukes. You don't have the capability to launch a half-an-hour campaign across all of Iraq or some crazy shit like that. People don't necessarily have the technological capability. I'm not saying that technology is the deciding factor in geopolitics or anything like that. But I just think that it's a matter of circumstances, and unfortunately circumstances are different. And hypothetically, if you're the governor of Texas, as you said, and you want to secede, well, you also have to think about the place of Texas in the grand chessboard. You know, there have been actual statements from the Kremlin saying they would support secession of any states within the Union. You have to think about that. That means arms dealers are going to be going over there, you know, Russian bureaucrats and everything like that. So does that compromise?
Where the hell was Russia in 1861? I just want to throw that out there. Fucking ass, they're late to the secession party.
Well, funny enough, Russia was actually a pretty good ally and a pretty good ally to the Union in the kind of late 1700s, early 1800s. We actually
they gave us Alaska, and now we're using it to become oil independent.
Yeah, well, we did a ton of trading with them, and Russia actually helped us out economically quite a bit during the war against the British.
They were very helpful on the other front. On the West Coast, granted, just being there to scare the British in Canada.
Yeah, pretty much.
Ivan the Terrible.
Speaking
we're
of,
coming for you.
Since we started talking about history, you know, we're probably going to nerd out on history now because me and 40 fucking do that. The War of 1812 is really interesting to me because if the invasion plan would have worked, we would own Canada right now.
Dude,
Woulda, coulda, shoulda. The treaty was already made in England beforehand. If the ship didn't take so darn long to get to the U.S., the war would have never happened. Granted, also it makes America humble knowing that someone else burned our White House down.
well, and I mean,
As the future dual citizen.
yeah. Well, and I mean, also the citizens of Canada at that time didn't necessarily want to become part of the Union. They wanted to stay part of the British Empire. So, I mean, whatever they want to do, good for them. I guess. For better or for worse.
Blame Quebec. That's what
I do.
you can always blame Quebec.
So, how's your St. Patty's Day so far, Zachary?
Good. I got my stub saying that my direct deposit worked as usual, and I'm home.
Nice.
No whiskey or nothing?
Nah. Nah, I mean, my spring break's kind of coming to an end, so.
Oh, that's right. I forgot it's fucking spring break shit.
For college.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Actually, most people start this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, my kids aren't on spring break yet. They have this coming up week left, and then they hit spring break.
Oh, really? For high school? Or
yeah, and elementary stuff. Yeah,
wow,
they
that's
got
early.
a 4-day week that, and then they hit spring break.
Yeah. Mine was always in April through high school. It was always like a month off. Oh, that's weird.
But yeah, I mean, what do you think, 40 ounce? If the United States, because they had an invasion plan for Canada, it just got bogged down right from the start, and then the British showed up, you know, so that kind of fucked things over. But I mean, if we actually would have, the plan would have worked, we would have had at least half of Canada right now. I mean,
maybe. I mean, from what I know, the natural citizenry of Canada, or the settlers in Canada, I should say, not the Eskimos or anything, right? But the the settlers in Canada didn't actually want to join. They wanted to stay part of the British Empire. So I think you would have faced a lot of natural resistance from them, not to mention external British forces, military forces, the Navy and everything, especially at that time. The Navy was still exceptionally strong. So it would have been...
Yeah, especially trying to get through the Great Lakes with the British Navy. Yeah.
Well, I meant...
Not a good idea.
No, awful.
We're going around.
No.
Well, would the Canadians have utilized all those polar bears? You know, mounted polar bear units? I would love to see that. That needs to be a Civ mod. Somebody needs to make that.
I'm sure Norwegians already have that. I mean, they dominate in the Winter Olympics.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to do something here, 40. Save the stream. Bring up something.
I mean, you're already at an hour and a half, to be fair. Brandon, what did you start out with?
Oh, we started off with that weird fucking message that's going around on the internet.
Oh,
What weird message?
if you want to explain that to him, I'm gonna step away for a bathroom break. I'll be right back.
Yeah, explain.
Oh, well,
Live reaction.
this
Zach
guy
reacts.
got a weird voicemail, and I guess if you play it backwards, you can hear people like they're in a fuselage of a plane. And then there was also some GPS coordinates for a spot off of Malaysia, where the Malaysian Airlines flight disappeared. Some NATO codes, like all sorts of weird shit, man. It's just blowing up on Reddit and stuff. It's almost like the cicada type shit.
Oh boy. Well, hopefully you can use this to find them. Or spend a little bit more money caring for people outside the U.S. Although,
Yeah, no, and he's crying off and on. So but yeah, it was some pretty weird shit. And then we started talking about the clown thing. You remember that a few years ago, right?
Yep, the murderous clowns.
Yeah, I'm still under the theory that it was a stunt, you know, from the people making the new It movie.
No, it's not a stunt. We had reports about that, I think 2 years ago in my area, where a subset of those clowns were in the area on my college campus apparently at one point. So we had like high alert for like a day or two. They're real. It's just not as big as a prop. I think it was overhyped. But yeah, no, there are murderous clowns out there.
No.
Like murderous clowns. They weren't murdering people though. They were just standing around with balloons. They were innocent clowns.
At night, right?
Yeah, and some of them may or may
Yeah,
not have
they're
been
murderous.
hatchets or big
Yeah.
butcher knife.
No. No. Yeah. Granted, my picture's a devil, and I'm dissing clowns, but no, I don't like clowns.
What? I would have been cool hanging out with those guys. I'm like, oh, nice butcher knife, man. What's up?
No, I mean, no. I mean, there is that one comedian where he's like, a gun, you always know what a gun's going to be used for, but when there's a knife, you never know. They can be icing a cake. They might try and use to stab someone. You never know what they're going to use it for. They might be icing a cake celebrating their first murder. You just never know.
Yeah, no, and I remember seeing some of those videos where like they would go up on people's porches and just stare into their fucking camera and shit. And this one clown picked up their pumpkin and stared at the camera and then started smashing it. Man, what drugs
I
are
think it
you
was
on?
Jim Gaffigan that said that comedy bit just to give credit where credit's due.
Like, what kind of drugs do you have to be on to be dressed up like a clown, sneaking up on porches and brutally murdering innocent pumpkins? Those poor
Not
pumpkins.
many. I mean, if we want to talk about the drug problem in the U.S., today would be an appropriate day to talk about it.
I was like,
What are you trying to say? As I grab my beer. Asshole.
I don't know. It's your stream to save.
No. No, 40, you're back. I know we already talked about the clowns, but I don't know. You got another topic? We've only gone an hour or so. I haven't even drank one beer.
You're an hour and a half.
You haven't even drank a beer yet? No, it's not even the time that concerns me. Oh, I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed, Indy. I just want to state that. Well,
I don't pound them. I mean, this one's almost gone. I'm about ready to open a second beer.
what?
I can catch up. Oh, if I wanted to.
Yeah, you could. We're only about half an inch deep. Well, what stories did you cover last night? I gave you like one or two. Did you talk about any others? Because I still have two of them up on my screen.
No, I didn't use that last link that you sent. We just wrapped it up, I think, shortly after you left.
Fuck. Was that the Russian cyber attacks?
I think so. I do have this one story that I was telling you about. It's from Fox News. 7 dead in U.S. military helicopter crash near Iraq border. All 7 military personnel aboard a U.S. Air Force HH-60 Pave Hawk helicopter were killed Thursday in a crash in western Iraq near the Syrian border. It's the first deadly aviation crash for the U.S. military in the war against ISIS in Iraq and Syria since the American involvement began in 2014. But U.S. Central Command, in a statement, said the crash does not appear to be the result of enemy activity. The incident is under investigation. So, I mean, at least it wasn't shot down. That is bad for 7 crew members all to perish. I mean, shit.
Yeah, that's pretty
Well,
good. That's pretty bad.
Were these crew members like carrying intelligence, or what were these crew members' roles?
That is a good question.
Yeah, I'm not sure, and I don't know if they disclose that. Yeah, an accompanying U.S. helicopter immediately reported the crash, and a quick reaction force comprised of Iraqi security forces and coalition members secured the scene. We are grateful to Iraqi security forces for their assistance. Names of the fallen will be released by the Department of Defense after the next of kin has been notified. So,
Oh wow. We don't know the names yet. All right. This is serious.
It wraps up at the end. It wraps up at the end. The incident marked the second aircraft crash for the military in 2 days, because that Navy F-18 crashed off the Florida Keys.
Mhm.
Oh,
So they're having a bad time right now when it comes to the aviation.
well, granted, people are expected to die. I mean, it's just bad that it doesn't come from enemy forces. Honestly, the Russia spy network always has a leg up against the U.S. They're just better at espionage. The U.S. is kind of shit at it.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't think they're gonna find anything. Knowing how bad our initial intelligence was when going into Iraq for the first time. Granted, we got Bin Laden, but that was because of a one-off person's individual effort to like really like get it done. Our espionage is just crap. So I don't think we're gonna find anything good. Or they're gonna find anything useful, even if they can't tell us necessarily.
Yeah.
That's because our investigations become too partisan, so it can improve if it's constantly being used for other purposes internally. That's the benefit of a one-party system. Hooray. Better espionage. No freedom.
Very true. Yeah, I don't think much is gonna come to it. I mean, I don't know. As for the, you said it was an
That's-
F-16 that crashed off the coast of Florida, though?
That's really bad.
It was an F-18.
Oh, an F-18. I actually don't know much about F-18s. I know that F-16s, a lot of F-16s were built in like the 80s and 90s, but they started developing in like the mid 70s. F-18 Hornet.
Oh wow, that's like the one that they use for like shows and stuff sometimes, or a modified version of it.
Yeah. Manufacturer started in the 70s as well. Okay. Well, if I had to bet, a lot of the FA-18s, a lot of the Hornets are probably developed in the 90s. They probably work on them as much as possible, but due to underfunding or, I don't know, insert reason here, a lot of them probably are in a state of repair. So, I mean, I don't know. We have a badass military, but there are some aspects that are fucking old as shit.
Granted, we're probably not using our best equipment in the safer areas, quote unquote. So maybe our best equipment's out in the Middle East, where we have to destroy it once we pull out. Because God forbid someone picks up our best weapons, they can only pick up our leftovers
Yeah.
to cause an insurgency. Military waste. I'm sure that'll get Mad Dodge going.
Oh, well, it's happened before. It's not something to be. It's not something unreasonable to be mad about. I don't think.
I mean, we're in the spring, so we can have Arab Spring 2.0.
Oh God. F-18.
All right, this has been the no.
I don't know. I do have one thing that's interesting, but I mean, I don't know. It seems to be a slow news day, to be honest.
Yeah, even the reporters are out getting smashed. We could wrap it up and just hang out in Discord and bullshit.
Yeah.
This has been a short St. Patty's Day stream. Thank you everybody for watching. I think, or no, you want to keep going for a few?
I do, or I don't know, because I mean, it's an interesting story, but I mean, I don't know, it delves into.
I mean, save like stories for the Centennial one coming up. The Centennial Red Eye stream. Make sure you have really good stories. I want to make sure it's a solid one.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, fuck. It's
Save
not a
your
great
stories.
story. That's the thing. It's not a very good story. I mean, it's just one that I thought personally was interesting, but I mean, fuck it, I can't find
Yep.
anything. Today sucks.
I'm going back to school, but hopefully I'll see you guys for your Centennial stream.
All right, sounds good, dude.
Yep. All right. So I'm going to end the broadcast. Good night, and don't get too drunk, everybody.